And, one of the interesting nuggets, and I guess this would be a good time to kind of transition, because one of the things that they talked about was kind of the coaching structure that was going to be under place, with Tom Allen coming in. And there were some interesting tidbits about, Taj Boyd and Ben Boulware and Tom Allen's son, Thomas, coming in, and being more involved as, hands-on coaches and all, recruiters. Um, so like, what were kind of your thoughts? Because I think it took a lot of people aback a little bit. They were like, okay, because Ben Boulware was basically an unpaid intern this past year,
Right.
And now Dabo's talking about him. He's going to be on the road recruiting, and he's going to be hands on with the linebackers, along with Thomas Allen as I assume as an analyst, because I know Thomas Allen will be an analyst, but I'm assuming that going out on the road and recruiting means that Ben Boulware is now an employee of the university.
Absolutely.
So like, I think it took a lot of people aback, because they're like, okay, that's strange. And Tom Allen is not going to be out on the road recruiting. One of the things that I was able to pick up is that this is kind of a shift that a lot of schools are making, as far as with the new rules about basically anybody can coach, and you can only have, but you can still only have like 10 coaches that go out on the road and recruit. Like, there are a lot of schools that are now, keeping their coordinators out of the on the road recruiting apparatus, and replacing them with analysts, so they can be more focused on the team and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what were your kind of thoughts? And you can talk about Taj Boyd as well, who will also be in a similar role on offense. Like, what did you think about that? Because this is going to be an interesting shift, and it's something we're not used to talking about, because you've always just assumed that, oh yeah, your coordinators are going out on the road and recruiting and doing all this stuff, like on top of being a coach. But now their role has significantly changed with this new rule.
Yeah, look, I mean, certainly one of the most interesting pieces of information to come out of this press conference was Dabo Swinney just kind of casually mentioning that Tom Allen wouldn't be on the recruiting trail, and Ben Boulware is going to be out on the recruiting trail next week, and we're talking about it with Garrett Riley as well, and he's probably not going to be out on the recruiting trail, and it's going to be Taj Boyd in place of him. So sounds like, in place of the offense and defensive coordinators, Taj Boyd's going to step in to that recruiting role when it comes to on the road recruiter. Obviously, the restructure in college football happened this past season, where everyone can be on the field coaches. Everyone can coach, but you can only have 10 designated staff members that go outside of your university to recruit. It sounds like this recruiting cycle is going to be a huge shift when it comes to how Clemson has traditionally run their staff. Taj Boyd's going to be out on the recruiting trail, and Ben Boulware is going to be out on the recruiting trail in place of Tom Allen. So when Dabo first mentioned it in the press conference, I'm not going to lie, I was taken back. I was like, I had to like rewind it. I was like, wait, whoa, what did he just say? Because like you said, that's just always been the status quo in college football, right? Your coordinators go on the recruiting trail and they recruit. They are the quote unquote head coaches of their side of the football, right? So it's certainly a shift from what has traditionally been the standard in college football. But to your point, it sounds like there's a lot of universities that have moved to this model, Penn State being one of them, where Tom Allen's kind of coming from. Tom Allen did not go out on the recruiting trail at Penn State. He was also not the primary linebacker coach there. They had another guy step into that role. So what it sounds like to me is that's the shift that Clemson is going to at least try out this season. Does Dabo stick with it? I don't know. Initially, like I said, I was taken back. The more I think about it, I think the more I like it. I like the idea of your offensive defensive coordinator being back at Clemson, having adequate time to perform the duties that they have. They have a lot of responsibilities. And if it's going to look like that they're not going to be so bogged down with one single position group and they're able to just kind of go back and forth between the position groups and coach their coaches, I think makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of something that Tom Allen mentioned in the press conference was that he really liked that model last season of just being able to bounce from room to room, give his input, coach his coaches, and make sure that the way that he wants his defense to perform is being communicated in the right way at each position group and their coaches, right? So I think it's a little unorthodox at this point in college football, but it sounds like this is what's going to become the norm in college football. It's a more pro style model where your coordinator is just your coordinator. They don't coach a position group necessarily. They do coach, but they're not set to one specific position group, and that's their guy. So sounds like that's the model that Clemson's going to. Personally, I think the jury's still out on it. I was taken back initially, but like I said, the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to like the idea of it and some of the benefits that could come from it. Because you do have those guys that can really mold and grow the position coaches with their knowledge, as well as you're growing younger coaches up. So I think it could be beneficial all the way around. As far as the two guys that are going to be out on the recruiting trail for Clemson this season, I don't think you could have picked two better guys. Two guys that are absolute massive names when you're talking about Clemson football. I don't think Ben Boulware or Taj Boyd are going to have any problems on the recruiting trail. They're guys that know how to build relationships. They're guys that know Clemson football through and through and can sell the program like none other. So I don't think there's going to be any step back when it comes to that. I don't think your recruiting would be significantly better if Tom Allen was on the recruiting trail instead of Ben Boulware for, the linebacker position or whatever. That's just my opinion. What were your thoughts when you heard it? Because I think all Clemson fans were a little like, wait, what? I saw a couple of things posted on, message boards and Facebook groups and all over the place where Clemson fans were just kind of like not really giving huge opinions on it, just like, did we hear this right? Like, what's going on? So your thoughts.
Yeah. Basically, you hit the nail on the head as far as just kind of the concerns like that I initially came into my head, like, okay, this is strange, but especially from the recruiting angle, I think it makes a lot of sense in response to just the shift in what recruiting has become in college football. Gutterich had this comment that I really liked. He said, "No need in coming to my home. How much are you paying? I'll come to you." I think that emphasizes kind of recruiting in college football today has become a lot more transactional. I mean, relationship building still has a place and it still matters, but to get your foot in the door, you gotta come with cash now. And I think ultimately that's what matters more, than you're having your coordinator being a guy that goes on the road and is able to, recruit and sell the school. It really is, how much are you offering? And
Right.
I'll come, I'll come visit, and then the coordinator, you can meet with the coordinator and all of that. So it's better to put honestly, it's probably better to put an analyst in that position, kind of an ambassador of the university, but not necessarily like one of your main coaches that are responsible for game planning week to week and roster construction and all of that. And so I think from that standpoint, this shift it's going to, like you said, it's unorthodox. It's going to be uncomfortable and strange to not have a coordinator. Your coordinator is going out on the recruiting trail. But I think one of the things that is also important is that, hey, your coordinators aren't going out on the road and building those relationships, but Garrett Riley and Tom Allen are household names in the football world. Like people know who they are. So, it's not going to take a lot of convincing to, there's not going to have to be that, I got to build rapport with a kid because he's not familiar with me, or his high school coach isn't familiar with me. Everybody knows who Garrett Riley and Tom Allen are, and especially in the Southeast. Like Tom Allen has tons of connections in the Southeast. He spent a lot of time in Florida. People know his name, and obviously he's just a big name in the coaching industry as well. And we've already talked about Garrett Riley, so like that, there won't be a problem there. And I think that's one of the things that made it so important to have two, experienced household name coordinators instead of a Wes Goodwin that just people don't know who. He's not a household name in the football world. Like he had to go out and build those relationships.
Right, and he had never called plays prior
right.
to him calling plays at Clemson, and I think
Exactly.
it's worth mentioning that Dabo Swinney is the closer at Clemson. He's the guy that you send in with the closing arguments. It's not Garrett Riley. It's not going to be Tom Allen. It's not going to be any coordinator that you hire. The guy at Clemson, the face of the program, the guy that sells Clemson is Dabo Swinney. He's the closer. So I don't think there should be a worry of any significant drop in recruiting. And I know what people are going to say as soon as I say that. They're going to talk about, oh, well, Clemson's recruiting dropped off this year. That is true. We did lose a ton of guys that were previously committed before signing day. However, that had more to do with NIL than it had with anybody's ability to close on the recruiting trail. That's just the fact of the matter. We weren't stepping up and paying enough money to get in the conversation, so guys left. And that goes to your point, Jordan, that you were just making about recruiting becoming a lot more transactional. It's essentially college football recruiting is essentially now tell me the number first. Okay, if it's a good number, I'll listen to your pitch, right?
Yep.
So it's number first, and then it's, okay, tell me about your university, right? And if you don't reach a certain threshold of number, they don't even want to talk to you.
Right.
And it just is what it is. I don't like it. As a college football fan, I don't like that. But that's where we are in major college football right now. So
and the sad part is a lot of times it's not the kid. Like these kids just they have agents and other people in their circle that are dictating a lot of
telling
that.
them, yeah, you have to do this. And
so
there's some of those guys that buck the trend, and that's not their main focus. But for I think it's safe to say for the large majority of kids coming out of high school, that is the first priority. And it just is what it is.